In addition, we also tripled our Norfolk Myers connections with the 140. So we revised the 590 and 595 run times, and I'll get into that a little bit later. So we receive a lot of recommendations from the public. We get requests for actions through our RFA system called Acela. We get people that call the office, that ask for me, and they want to give me their ideas on what we should do, how we should tweak this, where a new bus stop needs to be. We get emails through our customer service email address, and we genuinely take all that feedback and we look into every single one of them. I assure you, we look into every single one. We're not able to do a full detailed analysis on all of them, but we do look into every single one. We received this plan, this recommendation that I'm going to talk about here over the next few slides. I believe it was in December of 2016. We've looked at it since then. It's a large, pretty substantial plan, so it takes a while for us to review in addition to doing our own work, our daily work that we have. But these are some of the results of what we found when we did our analysis. There are an increased number of meets throughout the county, which is great. We love meets. We want to make more meets. Dig what we've seen, though, is that there's a reduced service to Southwest Florida International Airport. I've got a slide specifically on that one, so I'll dig into that a little bit later. But we're seeing increased operating cost, not only from having an actual extra operator, but sending out tripper vehicles or paying for more administrative staff. I think sometimes it's easy to say, oh, we'll just throw another bus on it. That's the most expensive for us to do, is just to throw an extra bus out there, because we have to have that operator just standing by. And in fact, the plan that we analyzed does not really look at Title VI issues. And I'm not sure how familiar you are all with Title VI, but Title VI guarantees that we're not affecting minorities and low-income populations inequitably. So we have to look at those things. In addition, there's a lack of layover time to facilitate transfers, meaning if you have two buses that are supposed to meet and people are going to be traveling from one bus to the next bus, you have to have a little extra cushion time built in. You can't have them meeting on the nose and expect that transfer to actually take place. There's no consideration for infrastructure capacity. So what I mean there is that in the plan that we analyzed, there are, say, in some examples, 11 buses that are supposed to meet at one location. Maybe Rosa Parks Transportation Center. Well, we only have 9 bays, so that doesn't really shake out for us. That's very difficult to make unless we were to expand our facility, which is an increased capital cost. And then finally, just for the analysis portion, this overview, it requires the use of private roads. And don't get me wrong, we use some private roads now, but we're trying to get our way out of private roads because it puts an extra liability on us. Those are not our roads. We damage those roads. We pay for those roads. So one in particular is Radar Court. That's over by the airport, by RSW. That is a major transfer point in this plan that we analyzed. Just want to make everyone aware that private roads are not good for us. All right, so getting into some of the, doing a little bit deeper dive here with the Title VI implications. So we look specifically, this is one example that we feel like is indicative of the entire plan. We looked at minorities. So we looked at this minority population on the Route 600 in Bonita Springs. This is what we currently do, right here. And you can see this darker shading, that's a high concentration of minority population. In the plan that we analyzed, it said to stay on US 41. Operationally, that seems like a great idea. I like that idea. But it doesn't work out when you see about who you're serving. So Title VI, just as a reminder, it ensures that we are treating people fairly and equally. That one group is not taking on an extra burden that other groups don't have to take on. So this high concentration of minorities here in Bonita Springs it's very important for us. And we could go under a Title VI investigation if we were to just pull service away from there. We want to serve people. We want to give them access. Another key point is that there's inconsistent scheduling. This is the Route 50. It does this all day, every day, all year. It's going Daniels, RSW, Tree Line, Daniels, Bell Tower, and then it continues on to go to the beach. In the plan that we looked at, less than 45% of those trips do that on a daily basis. That means it's just ending at Bell Tower, and there's no service to RSW for 55% of the time. For us, that's really unacceptable. We have to connect to the airport because they are another transportation, a public transportation agency. We want to maintain that connection. And we want to have consistent scheduling. So if I have my keys right over there, I can go outside and I know that my vehicle is there. I have that trust. I have the keys. It's my car. You need to have that same sort of trust in a public transportation system. You need to know that it's there, that it's coming on the hour, or that it's coming every 30 minutes. Finally, just the end of the deep dive here, we've got increasing distance increases time. So what I mean by that is we have the Route 515 over here in Lehigh Acres. This area that I'm circling is roughly what we cover now. Homestead Plaza out to East 12th and Joel. That's an hour run for us, the whole thing, the full cycle, north and south. It meets up with the Route 110 that travels on Lee Boulevard, and they meet up at Homestead Plaza. So they meet up every single time. What has been suggested in this plan is that we should have the Route 515 to be extended to RSW, but only do it on demand. So for us, there are a couple of issues with that, because on-demand trips are really pretty tough to schedule. It means that we have to have an extra person that's in the office that's taking those calls. It also means that the operator needs to know exactly where he's going to go, or she is going to go to pick up those people. It takes a lot of coordination. It doesn't mean it's impossible, but when you add 25 extra miles to this route, it makes it nearly impossible for us to do and to stay on time. So if we want to look at a 1 hour headway, which is what we have now, we're going to need 3 buses if we stay at 17 miles per hour. And 17 miles per hour might seem slow to you all, I'm not sure. 17 miles per hour is historically what we run in Lehigh Acres. Going back to that AVL data, the automatic vehicle location data that I mentioned earlier, that's what we're seeing. Out of hundreds of thousands of time points, we look at how fast that vehicle is moving, about 17 miles per hour. So in order to get back on track, we're going to need 3 buses. It doesn't mean we would need 3 buses all day, but at some point you need to get back to your schedule. So we put this into Remix here, and that's the outcome. So every 60 minutes, that's our headway. Our speed, 17 miles per hour, 3 vehicles. That means it's extra operating costs on us. So finally, just want to leave you with a few considerations. I know this is a little bit longer LeeTran report than normal, but I think it's important to share. So good service is more than connections. It is connections, and that's very important, but access is also very critical. If you can't access the bus, you can't take the bus. So you have to be traditionally what's known as within the transit shed, quarter mile from a bus stop. That's arguable depending on pedestrian infrastructure and so on, but that's what the literature says. Coverage can also be a goal. So not every route is like a Route 140, for example. We have the 590, we have the 595, the 60. Those are more about coverage. It's about providing a bus to the people that live there. When we're trying to plan for more connections, we need to plan for more recovery time, more time for the bus to sit. That means it's, quite honestly, it's operationally inefficient, but we're ensuring that those connections are being made. Consistency builds trust. We have to put a product out there that's very consistent, so the public believes that the vehicle is going to be there, that it's going to be there for their needs, and take them when they need to go. If you ever increase distance in public transportation, you you have to add time to maintain that same frequency or to maintain that headway. You've got to add more buses. There's no other way to do it. Frequency makes connections less meaningful. This might seem a little convoluted, but just a quick explanation. If you're traveling from a low frequency route to a high frequency route, once I get to that route where I'm about to transfer, the high frequency one, it doesn't matter so much because the vehicle is there more often. Going the opposite way is where you really have the trouble, going from a high frequency to a low frequency. So that's a point that I'd like everybody to keep in mind. And then finally, there are a lot of service models out there. One that we use is partly a trunk and feeder system. Some of it is a pulse. We kind of have this hybrid of sorts here just due to our land use. As you all know, Cape Coral is built more in a grid type fashion. Del Prado, Santa Barbara, and you got these gridding streets like on Veterans and Cape Coral Parkway. So they have nice east-west corridors and north-south corridors, right? But it starts to change when you go to South Lee County. It's a little bit more dendritic. It looks like a tree almost. That makes it tough for transit. But we are looking into other models like microtransit, specifically with point deviated, meaning that there's one solid point and all the vehicles operate out of that one point. So microtransit is being explored by a lot of agencies throughout the nation. We're waiting to see how that kind of shakes out because it still is very new. The technology behind it is still very new. We don't want to be a guinea pig in that regard, but we are interested in how it might be used advantageously for us to provide service to areas that we didn't provide service to before because of the low density or the suburban nature of the land use. So that's all that I have for my presentation. I thank you all for giving me the time and for listening up.